good morning, and good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you're watching this from. My name is Brenda Meller, and my show is called Enthusiastically Self Employed because I bring on folks from different areas, different industries, different backgrounds to help to educate you on different techniques as a solopreneur. And I'm delighted because today I have with me Adam Klug. Hey, Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. It is Halloween here in the US, and some folks will be watching this today with us live, and some will be watching in the playback later. And I even thought about, this topic, hiring your first employees, what we're going to be talking about today. That can be a little scary. So maybe there's the Halloween tie-in. Yeah. But we don't want you to be scared, and that's why I brought Adam on to talk with us. Hey, as we are getting the conversation started, Adam, I'm going to invite our
Yeah.
guests. If there's anyone who's watching us live right now, if you could do us a favor, do us a solid, if you will, and drop a comment below. Just say good morning, let us know where you're watching from, or maybe tag someone in who might be interested in this topic. And just like Doug did right now. Hey, Doug, how are you doing? I will pull your comments up on screen. And this is kind of like the mic tap, Adam. If we were at a live event, I would be tapping the mic and saying, "Can you people hear me in the back?" And the people in the back would wave their hand, or they'd do the universal, "I can't hear you." This lets us know that the live stream is picking up. So we look like we are good to go. And thank you to Doug for helping us with that. So as we're getting the conversation started, I want to let folks know how we met. We were both at in Frankenmuth this summer in July at the HR Unite Michigan annual conference, organized by the wonderful Tina Marie Woolfield. I'll give her a shout out in comments in just a second. And we both had vendor tables at the event, and we were right across from each other. We were kind of talking on and off throughout the day, talking shop, talking dogs, all the good stuff on there. So I know a little bit about you and your business, Adam, but for the benefit of those that are watching who maybe haven't met you before, why don't you take a few minutes, tell us what do you do, who do you help, and a bit about your company, if you could.
Yeah, so I'm Adam. I'm with the Specialized Recruiting Group. I'm the managing director over here. And what I'm passionate about, the reason I am in recruiting, because I'm passionate about how employment affects the individual, the business, and the community. And how we're able to do that is that, we work with professionals, we work with companies and help connecting people to great opportunities out there. A lot of what we do is inside the construction space and also helping out a lot in accounting and finance. All throughout, I would say Michigan, but all throughout the US, we can work as well too. And I've been in it recruiting wise for the past 8 years. I've always loved it. And, the opportunity to help out people, the opportunity to help out my team and see as we grow and just place more people into better positions out there. That's why I come to work every day.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of knowledge about the whole hiring process, which is a great tie-in to the topic today. And I remember when we were talking in Frankenmuth at the table, I said, I'd love to host you, but I want to figure out what might be the right topic because a lot of organizations you're working with are more, the smaller to mid-size and even larger organizations that are hiring a lot. And I said, what about, solopreneurs and even people who are self-employed that are starting to grow into a small business? Is that something you could help us with? And I think you said, yeah, how about like hiring your first employee? And I'm like, brilliant, because there's a lot of us who are self-employed where we get to that point where we need to think about hiring somebody and maybe that is a VA or an operations manager or an intern or whatnot. So we're going to jump into the conversation, Adam, and I'm just going to lead with the big question, which is hiring your first employee. Okay, what do we need to think about to start with?
Yeah, I think, kind of what I look at in the recruiting hiring process and actually going through this myself, because I was a solo entrepreneur starting out a new division, established company, but me on my own and hiring my first employee and going through it myself was definitely a different experience, a hands-on experience for me. But I always kind of break down recruiting into find, select, and retain. So going off with, the finding part, how do you ever expect to find that person if you don't know what you're looking for? And so this is where, I work with a lot of organizations. And kind of what I looked at myself is saying, okay, who do I really need to have on the team? Who is that person? What is, their tools, experience, and personality? And what I really looked at is kind of building out a scorecard to begin with, to kind of help, me vet out candidates. So, the tools, everyone has a tool that they can use. They have so much experience, or they have experience inside a software system, or experience inside a certain niche. But then more of their experience is, okay, how do they use that experience, to use that tool at the best of their ability? And that could be good for you, or it could be good for another great organization out there outside of yourself. And then, really personality is, and it's built up so much over the years about, culture fit, value add, and culture adds, that coming into the organization. But, the personality of not only the person, the individual, but if you're hiring your first employee, what is essentially that culture that you want to bring and surround yourself with. And hopefully, at the end of the day, I always like to call, either I guess the non-PC term is a late night beer test or Thanksgiving dinner test to figure out, hey, can you work with this person every day, all day? They're going to be your number two person. Can you sit around and, talk with them for hours and strategize for them for hours too? So, personality is definitely a huge part when getting started, I think, and adding, just setting the tone of, okay, what your organization is going to be like and where you want to move the organization. And so that's one thing, if I kind of hone in on it, when I started out, I had 0 clients, 0 candidates to start with. And so, for me, it was saying, hey, I'm not going to bring someone into this huge established business and we're going to have all this great success right away.
Right.
It was more just saying, hey, we're going to build the plane as we're flying it. And I, want people on my team that, hey, we're going to come and we're going to grow this thing together. I'm not, higher than you are, lower than you are. We're sitting on, each other's shoulders right now. And we're figuring out, okay, what is the best way to grow this? What is the best way, to do this? And how can we go about doing this together too? So I kind of look at, when first, like I said before, you can't find that person if you don't know what you're looking for. So really locking in, essential, a scorecard or maybe a, self-assessment of that exact perfect fit and that perfect profile that you're looking for. And then, on top of that too, is building out either a job posting or a job description. There's a lot of places where you can, post a job for free. If you have a LinkedIn, business account, you can post that one job for free, or Indeed, you can go out there. And so it's very much, how do you, do the pre-work if you're really serious about hiring someone and bringing someone on your team, really getting the upfront work together. And then, moving forward into, how do you go after that talent? How do you focus on that talent? And I would say for solo entrepreneurs, the easiest way to, try to go out and talent, you only have so much time in the day. But what are some, what I call employee referral programs? If you don't have employees, what are some referral sources, networks, where are you already spending time? And then that you're always asking the question, hey, I'm looking for this person. Here's a job posting, job description I have. Here's somewhat of a scorecard or tool that I use to vet out people. Do you know anyone that could kind of fit this mold? And the more people that are coming to you, hopefully the less time you have to spend and go out and actually, searching for a person out there.
Yeah.
And so that would be huge on that. Brenda, I don't know if you have any comments towards that, but that's kind of the first step in the bucket is, really planning, strategizing. As far as you plan your business, plan on that person and that next spot, next position, you're gonna fill.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like, I mean, we're really talking today about finding and hiring your first employee, but I think a lot of the strategies that you've just discussed, Adam, would really work as you grow your team, because maybe it's the first one that you're building right now, you're adding to your team to build that structure, that finding that person that you can have good conversations with strategy about. But I also could see that helping you with the bigger picture to continue to grow your team. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Because we work with a lot of organizations, seen organizations from kind of startup mode, and making that wrong hire. I mean, statistics show that it can cost you 3 times that person's salary if you do make that wrong hire. And
Mhm.
so it's very crucial in the beginning to at least, get it right the first time. I know that's not always going to happen, and
Yeah.
that's not, we don't live in a perfect world, but it definitely does, I think, set the tone of what you're trying to do. And then, as you add more employees to that, right, that tone and that culture stays with. And then, people are either going to come, join a part of that and want to be a part of that, or,
Mhm.
save everyone's time and, go a different direction. So
Yeah.
100%, I think, even for solo entrepreneurs or, established businesses, everyone can kind of pick up these tools and just really lock in on either that first person or the 1,000th person, that they're hiring
Yeah.
for their team.
Think
Yeah.
big, right? And as you
Yeah.
were talking about, doing your job posting after you get the job description written and kind of crafted, and then you're putting it out. And I love that you talked about the fact that you can do a free job posting on LinkedIn. I think it's 30 days, and I think you can only do one at a time. Now, they don't get the best amount of reach, but I always tell folks, Adam, that once you get the job posting created and it sits in the jobs area of LinkedIn, I also encourage them to merchandise it on your company page and even for you as a person to push it out as a post, like through your Adam Klug's profile. But I
Yeah.
love what you said about leveraging your networks and asking for referrals. And this is like once you have a job link, whether it is through Indeed or through LinkedIn, if maybe you don't have a jobs board on your website yet because it's one position, but once you have a link, it makes it real, and then that's something that you can use to share out. Do you agree, or anything to add on to that?
Yeah, no, you want something that's tangible, that
Mhm.
people can see or people can share. And that has definitely happened for me for a fact. Everyone that I've hired on my team, probably except the first person, all came through referrals, and all came just through natural networks of either people that I knew before or people that I talked to 2 years ago or someone I just talked to yesterday saying, hey, you really need to talk with this person. I know you keep saying you want to keep growing your team. Like, here, take this conversation. And so, yeah, I 100% agree to have something that you can move around, share around. If you can put on your website, great. I see so many companies that don't have even a career page. I feel like that should be the first thing on someone's website. Maybe I'm
Careers
biased that
page,
way.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
And
but
it's interesting that
100%.
you say that. I have, I'm self-employed and I have an intern. There's points and times where I've had 2 interns, and there's been points in time where I've outsourced. So it's more working with freelancers, not full-time employees. But if you go to Meller Marketing in the footer at the bottom, I do have a careers link, and it's pretty much it's just the intern position. And I let people know they can, continually throughout the year apply for it. But it's funny how when you're self-employed, like when you're thinking about a website, you're really thinking about contact information, list of services, maybe testimonials, but careers is like falling to the bottom of the list. But at the point in time, Adam, that you're looking to hire your first employee, and that's what we're here talking today about, is hiring your first employee. People are going to do some lookups on you, right? They want to figure out,
Yeah.
is this Adam guy legitimate and does he have a real business? And they're going to do the same thing that your customers do. They're going to Google you, they're going to look you up, they might even go to your website. And I think it provides a nice affirmation of legitimacy if they can see a careers page and they're seeing consistency with what they heard about the job description. Any thoughts to add on to that?
Yeah, I would say 100% to that. I've been called out, in interviews saying, wow, you have all these. And I was always big on LinkedIn recommendations and getting a
Mm,
lot of recommendations. So I've had a lot of people call that out in the interview, like, whoa, you have a lot of good people, saying good things about you. What have you done? What do you contribute your success to? And, it kind of goes down into a rabbit hole that way. But the more, I would say the more good press, right, that you can have, the more people are talking
yeah,
about you, sharing good things about you. And then the more, consistent your message is to everyone out there, hopefully the more fruitful it's going to be in, getting the right person to come to you essentially. So,
yeah,
no, I would 100% agree with that. And then, it's really just from there. Okay. After you kind of spread that message out, how do you take it? When you jump on the first interview with someone, a structured interview process is twice as more likely than an unstructured interview process to hire a high performer. So, how do you, go about the interviewing process, and, what are certain ways you can go about in doing that? That's such a crucial part, so you don't miss on any steps, in hiring the wrong person as well, too, I think. Yeah.
That's a really good point. And when you work for corporate, Adam, you have HR in the recruiting department that they pretty much handhold you through the hiring process. If you're the hiring
Yep.
manager, they'll say, okay, here's a bucket of resumes that we have for you. They'll put them in a folder or an email box, and here's your 300 resumes to look through, and then here's your interview discussion guide, and here's what we recommend in the process, and here's the what not to do and what to do. Going through the process.
Yeah.
But when you're on your own as a solopreneur, now you're in this, like, this is land of, like, where nobody is telling you what to do, and you're in control, you're steering the ship. And
Yeah.
gosh, you've got to hire an employee, and then you start to get questions about the legalities of things and what to do and what not to do and what paperwork you need to do, and then there's payroll, and it can feel very complex very quick. And I know your area of expertise is really in the hiring process, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's I always thought about it internally myself, saying, almost that oh crap moment. I am gonna
Yeah,
hire this
see?
person, and I got so much work to do after the fact, right? Not only
Mhm.
getting the person in, but also having a good onboarding experience and retaining them as well
Yeah.
too. And so it's kind of, there's a lot of you can put a lot of weight on your shoulders, a lot of, all the after the fact and how it's going to be like. But really, just what I typically say is, focus in the moment, even when, I'm training other recruiters how to recruit. But, it's simple. If I was going to give anyone advice, what I always do is performance based hiring and have a process set up. And so, first initial call, I would say, if you're talking with someone, they're new to you, you're new to them,
Mhm.
simple 15, 20-minute phone screen and mark out, 3 or 4 questions you really need to get answered to figure out if this even might be a right fit, for the position in general. But it's really more of a get to know you call. Why are they looking? What are they looking for? What are their compensation requirements, right? Because if you just can't pay the person, then it may not be a good fit, to begin with. And then, everything from, software, if you're looking for a certain software ability in that, really the hard requirements more in that, like that talent bucket, that I was talking about before. Do they have the talent to do the position? And are they, speaking to you or saying things that, could have the right experience or right personality for it? And then from there, everything seems to go well, kind of off that brief conversation.
Mhm.
Then, leave it up to the person, but either do, an hour or just how much time it takes to go through a person's background from past to present. And that could be over the phone. I recommend in person always if you're hiring your first employee, to
Yeah.
get those nonverbal cues, or video, however you're set up. But really go through their background from past to present and figure out not only what they did, how are they able to do it, major successes and accomplishments, if they've had them, could they do the same for your organization? And then why they transition from position to position, and then what are the reasons why behind it? And that's so important, because if you hear someone, oh, hey, I just hated my boss in my last position, or I
Right?
just left for more money, are they going
And
to
you
do
know,
the same thing
your
to you?
boss, we don't have a problem with people hating it, but we don't want to hear you say that in an interview, because if you say that in an interview to us and we hire you and it doesn't work out, what are you going to say about us? Lawyer,
Yeah.
it's the filter. You got to develop it a little bit, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing about hiring your first employee. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you want to gain some ROI, right? You want to gain revenue. We're in the business, to get profit, and I understand that too. So, just the fact that someone's money motivated, don't let that deter you. But if that's really their only motivation and why they're looking, that should be an area of pause or concern to say, hey, let's dive back in and check this out. And always, I think, it is such a process, because recruiting, hiring, it's all a gamble. But if you have the right process, you're going to mitigate your risk and get the best odds out of it. And
Yeah.
so, I always tell people, don't be afraid to have long interview process, especially up front, and make sure you know 100% about the person, they know 100% about you. And then hopefully once you do the final stage, making that offer letter out, that offer letter should just be, oh, hey, by the way, this is everything we've already talked about. Here,
Right.
go ahead and sign this and come, we're excited for you to join the team.
Mhm.
That's what it should really be like. You should never, hopefully never send an offer letter without, saying, oh, I'm second guessing this person, I'm not sure they're right fit, and going through that. So it is, just like you said before, Brenda, there's a lot of work to be done post hire or after the
Yeah.
hire. But if you don't get the small steps right in between and vet out that person fully, then it's you're not doing a benefit to yourself. You're not doing a benefit, to the person that you're hiring in.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it really does need to be a good fit, and there's not a lot of advice out there about interviewing and getting the job and things. I mean, it really does need to be a good culture match and a good fit, and I always tell when I work with job seekers, I always tell them it's as much as it is them interviewing you to figure out if you're a good fit, as it should be you interviewing them to figure out, do you wanna work for the company? Would you
Yeah.
agree with that, and anything to add on to that?
Yeah, I would say, especially hiring my first employee, I was, the nerves kick in because as much as you're nervous interviewing the person and hopefully
Yeah.
they like you, but you don't want to oversell yourself,
Right? Yeah, you're trying not to be, like, too needy, like, on that when we think about dating, that first date where we like the person so much and we're trying to be like or like, you don't wanna be over the top 'cause then you scare them away, right?
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. And then it's just putting yourself, in the other person's shoes, right? They're nervous, they're interviewing, this career path, it's a huge life change.
Yeah,
It's just a life change in general. And so, you got to factor that in. So as much as, you might be your nerves racking, there's other things on your mind and you want to be doing something else rather than interviewing this person. I get it. I was there, but you really
yeah,
got to slow down to speed up. And it's definitely nerve wracking on both sides because yeah, as a manager, as a leader, I don't want to make a mistake
yeah,
because I know if I make a mistake hiring the wrong person, I'm going to take it all on me, and that's all going to be on me at the
mhm,
end of the day. And no one likes to be in that position, really,
yeah,
at all. So it's just one thing you gotta have to keep top of mind, that it's a nerve wracking experience, but if you have the right plan, the right strategy up front, those nerves kind of level off, and hey, you're doing something that's hopefully potentially going to grow your business
yeah.
tremendously for the future if you get this first hire right.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Well, I'm gonna change gears a little bit here. I'm gonna invite our audience, for those folks that are watching us live. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to bring into the conversation, feel free to drop your comments below. And I'll let you know, Adam, there's a little bit of a delay. It's almost like when TV does like a live stream for the award shows, there's a couple seconds delay in there. And they do that to get the expletives sometimes. Deep down. No, we don't have those issues here, but there is about a 20 to 30-second delay from the time I say, hey, drop your comments or questions below until our audience hears it. And then it might take them another 20 to 30 seconds to think of a question and type it in. So while we're waiting to see what comments or questions are coming in from the audience, I'm curious. And for me, I want to know from you, who was your first hire? Like, what was the role within the company? For me, it was an
Yeah.
intern. And I've had a couple different interns that I've hired, and they've all been part-time positions. I've not had a full-time employee, and I wonder if we were to change this to hiring your full-time employee, how that might change. But I'm curious, what was the role that you hired for your first employee?
Yeah, mine. So it was kind of almost two in one, and I can go kind of like full time or hired some direct. But when I first started, I had an intern myself. They were helping out a little bit different parts of the business. But then as I started to grow, I was like, oh wow, I need more help. So I snagged a current intern from my team or from our team in general and brought him over and
Okay.
really was more hand holding at first and getting him off on the right foot. His name is Matt, and he really just took my guidance and leadership and ran with it. And then really kind of after I hired Matt, my first employee that I hired from the outside in on my own was Chris. And so with his background, he had proven recruiting experience working at another recruiting firm. And then he also had some industry experience as we do a lot of work in construction. He worked in construction before.
Hmm.
So, leveling out those two things, his personality, mentality that he had coming into it, that was kind of the first person I hired, outside in. So I had kind of a little groundwork with the intern at first, which I always think is a good play to give someone great experience to begin with, even if they end up leaving. But then, that first employee out, that was definitely a big hire because I just knew at the time I couldn't get it wrong. It was costly if I did get it wrong.
Right.
And went through, I don't know, I probably went through 30 interviews over just phone interviews, video interviews, and I probably brought 10 people in
Yeah.
before I ever hired my first employee. So it's a process.
So the
Yeah.
first full time was a recruiter for you. Did I hear you say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was well, kind of more of a sourcing specialist because
Mm-hmm.
our team it's a sourcing specialist paired up with a recruiter. So he
Hmm.
was doing a lot of the groundwork, finding candidates, setting people up on my schedule, and then I was doing all the recruiting and sales. And
Gotcha.
then once we got more sales built up, essentially providing me more opportunity to find that full-time recruiter to help pair with kind of that sourcer, and then they became a team, and then
Hmm.
help me just double down on my activities and double down on their activities to get the kind of traction that we wanted to see.
Yeah, and I'm looking at comments off to the side because I'm noticing on LinkedIn some of the comments I'm seeing are not coming into StreamYard. Sometimes the technology doesn't play well together. So if you see me looking off to the side, it's not because I'm ignoring you. But
Oh, you're
I,
good.
I've read a lot about this, and I'll share this story because I'm sure there's other people who are self-employed who might be thinking about when do you hire your next employee. And I've read a lot of articles and methodology about, I think for a lot of people, when they are hiring their first employee, it's some type of a VA or an assistant or an intern, and then the next hire after that is, if it's a full time hire, I've read a lot that says you should be hiring someone who's helping to grow your business at that point. So it's either a lower price point or a lower hourly rate than you are so that you can be freed up to do the things that are making money for your business, or they are revenue or sales generating or appointment generating in your case. So I think there's some rationale with that. I do see a comment coming in from Eric, and I want to say hey to Eric. Eric's a good friend within the HR community, and Eric says, "I've heard it said that you should hire for values, fit, and culture." I've always liked that philosophy, and I think that's really what you're saying as well, Adam. But did you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that culture ad, that someone that that if they have the same core values. I know what our core values are as well too. It's a great place to start. But I know also being in the business, we in recruiting and hiring, we just don't hire good people to hire good people, so to speak. So they could be a great person, great personality, but if they don't have that right experience or the right talent that they can bring
Mhm.
to your table, then you have to look at the fact, just, Eric was saying, hey, is there an opportunity if they're coming with, the right values, the right personality, could you coach them up? That's
Mhm.
definitely a possibility, right? And could you teach them the experiences and the talent they need to have, to be successful? And then you also have to look at that. Is that the right thing for your business right now, right timing, right? Or do you want to, hire that more experienced talent, but still obviously the personality, the values are huge, right? You can't
Yeah,
mistake those because that can break any culture, can break any company in an instant. So it is. I get that it kind of is a double-edged sword. I would say a
yeah,
little bit. So I think it depends on where you're at in the business, but I've always kind of lived by that philosophy where someone may not have the I would say the right talent that I need at the right moment, but they're coming in with a great personality. They align with our core values. Is it worth it to take a shot on them and then help coach them up? And then in fact, do I have time to take the time out of my day to coach them up? Then I would 100% do it. So
Yeah.
different, maybe a little bit of view, but still, it's still a huge part of the conversation. It's something you can't miss on because it can break a
Yeah.
culture instantly.
It's so relatable when you talk about the time investing and coaching up your employees, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier. You almost get to the point as if you're working for yourself, you're self-employed. You're no longer working for a company, so you don't have people helping you do all the things. You're doing all the things, and you might get to the end of the day and you love it and you're happy with what you're doing and you don't want to be back to working for an organization. You love being self-employed, but you're exhausted. And then you start to think about what can I take off of my plate and what could I either outsource or bring in an employee and give them that work to do. But it does take some ramp up time. There is a period of time where you're doing more work than you were before because you're training and you're onboarding that person. But it's kind of like the short term pain, long term gain type of thing. You
Yeah.
need to invest that time in training them to get to the point where your time is free. And you probably can relate to that too, Adam, right?
Yeah, training never stops, learning never stops. I know Eric will really appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's constant. No matter, I always think we're proficient, we're not good, we're not great yet, and there's excellence. And so everyone's on a different area, everyone's at a different skill level, training wise. And
Yeah.
so no matter what, throughout the whole time, no matter who you hire, I mean, the continuous learning and training and just sitting along side by side with people, their weekly one-to-ones, monthly one-to-ones, KPIs, performance reviews,
Yeah.
things that come up within that nature. You have to guide, the training and give them, as a leader, the right resources to be successful in their position. So yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that for sure.
You just made me think of another thing, and then I'm going to go to Kenneth's comment, which is up on screen right now. But for each of my interns, I created them a weekly report template, and we've pretty consistently we've been meeting virtually. Pre-pandemic, when I had a local intern, we would meet in person at a coffee shop or a co-working space for once a week or something to do a project review. But part of what I have on their report was it's this typical like things that are in progress, assigned, not yet begun, completed, and then there's two sections at the bottom, questions. So I want them always to come into our conversations with what questions you have, and I expect you to have questions, and I really try to enforce that early on in the position too, because I don't want them to be hesitating to ask questions. And I always tell them, as the position goes on, as longer you're in the role, you're going to have fewer questions, or they're going to be more strategic, not like how do I do this, but why do we, or things like that. And then the other thing is, what did I learn this week? And sometimes that's tied into mistakes that you've made. Sometimes it's just tied into gaining new knowledge. But if you're always thinking every week to put on your report something new that you learned that week, and I tell them this is a good resume builder too. Over time, you can look back at these weekly reports and add some information in there. Any thoughts on that approach or?
Yeah, yeah. I've talked with a lot of candidates that have kind of made, to your point, kind of I would say some people call them like a brag book,
Hmm.
right? But something tangible that they can take with them, especially if it is an intern, right? Take on with them for the next position if it's maybe not with you,
Yep.
but something they can show and it can help level them up. And then obviously that puts, your own company in a great position with a great name and have great recognition out there that hey, you provide them with this experience and something tangible to move forward with as well. So, and I've also there's this one client that we do have. I know the CEO sends out an email every Friday, and he just has one question. He just says, "Why do you like working here?"
Oh,
Because
that's
he
good.
wants to see
Mhm.
why everyone likes working here. I haven't implemented that yet. I want to though, because someone could have a really bad week, or you could have a really bad week, but you still come back, day after day. So why are people coming back? Why do they like work with you? And that's
Mhm.
things as a leader, you want to know, and hopefully unbiased reasons you want to know too,
Yeah.
to keep growing in the right way. So that's just one question to
I love
potentially
that.
ask.
Why do you like working here? Another question I ask, and I'm going to invite our guests if you have any thoughts or on questions you should be asking your employees if you're a solopreneur, feel free to drop them. You're no longer a solopreneur. Now you're starting to become an entrepreneur with employees, I guess we should say there too. But what are the other questions you asked? One thing I'm asking my interns as they reach the end of their internship is, and at this point, they pretty much do what I need them to do. Social media marketing. I can say to my intern Julia right now, can you do this? And she'll do it, or she'll figure out how to do it. So now I say to her, is there any other experience that you'd like to gain through this internship that you haven't had the chance to yet? Because I want to help to build up your portfolio. And I think that they
Yeah.
really like that. All right. I want to move to Kenneth though. And Kenneth had put in a comment. He said, we added a part-time marketing person to our company page, and he alludes to it from time to time. Kenneth, I put into comments to add, which page is this on? Because there might be somebody watching this video today or in the playback later who's interested in a part-time marketing role, and they can go into it. But I think you can do that with the LinkedIn job postings as well as Indeed. I think, Adam, those can be part-time roles as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah, I would just, if you're gonna, because we're also hiring a part-time person too, so I'm going through it right now myself.
Yeah.
But it's really making it clear in, the job posting, job description, right up front, hey, this is a part-time role, and maybe how many hours associated with it. Because what I've seen through my own efforts is that, the candidate market, they see a job posting apply, maybe they don't read fully of
Yeah.
it, or maybe they just read the top half. So just being, I would think, really clear about it, having the right expectations, and even asking a person after they apply to it, hey, I know I saw you applied to our part-time, marketing role or part-time whatever role it is. Is that the right understanding that you had? So you keep the time frame and you protect your time essentially, so you're talking with the right people. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Put it
no,
in the front of
definitely.
the job posting though, so that's
Yeah,
clear that it's part-time, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
would 100%. They're always going to get candidates that may not read that or skip over that or gloss that, but just
Yeah.
making that first, whatever you want to make most known and most clear, put at the top of your job posting, and just so that's one of the first things that they see to attract the right talent that you want to talk to essentially.
That's a really good point. Really good point. I like that. All right, I want to start to kind of wrap us up here. And as I'm doing that, first thing I'm going to do, Adam, is I'm going to share your website up on screen, and I'm also going to drop the link into the chat. And as is common with many people who are growing their business, you told me in the pre-interview, you're like, "Hey, we're going to be working on updating our website." Actually, that's a good thing. And I think most organizations understand that updating and rehauling your website is something you do about every 5 years. 3 to 5 years is the time frame for that, and especially as your business grows and evolves. So right now the web address is expresspros.com/Farmington Hills MLSRG. I am going to drop that into the comments, and it will be in the show notes later. But as that's up on screen, we can see some things that are kind of flickering around, Adam. But tell us a bit about, if people that are watching this show, or maybe they're watching the playback, listening to it on the podcast even, if they're interested in doing business with you, can you summarize for us what are the services and offerings that you do?
Yeah, so for us, Specialized Recruiting Group, as you kind of see from that here, we're a part of Express Employment Professionals, a large staffing and recruiting company, one of the largest in the US. There's about 850 offices across the US, Canada, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. The Specialized Recruiting Group is the professional recruiting arm for Express Employment. So on the Express side, what I would say is that we do a lot of light industrial recruiting, a lot of work with manufacturers, automotive, within just our general area. And then we do a lot of skilled trades, office services like call center, office manager, receptionist type roles. And then on my side of the business, the Specialized Recruiting Group, we work a lot within the construction space with general contractors, civil engineering firms. And then on the other half, we do a lot of accounting and finance type placements. That's kind of our core niches, is what we know, what we're good at. And we've done other, HR positions, other roles outside of it that we can take on, but those definitely are our main two. And then, yeah, if I would say if you want to find me, I mean, I always give out my cell phone freely. I'm happy to take any call. My cell is 269-757-1125. That's a open line for everyone to call, even my family, friends. They always call me with employment questions. And then I'm on LinkedIn, of course, too, just underneath Adam Klug. And my email address is just adam.klug at express or s at srgexpress.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And I think I have that inside your
Okay.
contact info here. I'm pretty quick on the draw, so to speak. So I will drop that into the chat for folks that are watching us here today. And I did pull up your LinkedIn profile up on screen, and let me just make that a little bit larger. Now I can tell because I've got a trained LinkedIn coach's eye, Adam, that you have creator mode turned on your profile. And I know that because I see at the top of your profile it says talks about, and there's a list of these hashtags. Now, what that means for the viewer is if you're not yet connected to Adam's profile on and you go to his profile on LinkedIn, you're not going to see a connect button. You're going to see follow. And follow is a one-way action, but if you're really looking to connect with Adam, and I would encourage you to do so, you'll want to click on the more button. From your view, if you click on the more button, you'll see a drop down underneath that will say personalized invite or connect. And I always choose the personalized invite if you see that one, connect if you see that, just make sure you choose add a note and just mention, hey, I saw you on the interview with Brenda Meller. Just name drop me. He'll remember because we've only done one of these interviews. He's not going to be like, which interview with Brenda Meller? It was the interview you had. And it sounds like you'd be open to connecting with folks if they were to invite you to connect, Adam.
Oh, 100%. So I definitely take a lot of calls that, sometimes I'm just giving advice or words on the market. And, hey, if we can help out, we can help out. If we can't, we just want to be transparent as possible and then try to connect you with people like Brenda or like Eric. That'll get you in the right spot and get you connected to the right group of people. So definitely.
Awesome. So I think you can all see now that you learned a little bit more about Adam's business. I mean, we were talking at each other across the tables at this HR Unite conference, and I'm like, you really work with larger organizations, but it sounds like you've got a lot of expertise about the hiring process. And when we came up with this topic, hiring your first employee, it's certainly something that Adam has a lot of insights and expertise working within. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, Adam, for you joining. And do you want to give our audience any final comments on hiring their first employee?
Yeah, I would say, kind of like what we talked about, but definitely, have a process up front. I'll always harp on you can't find that person if you don't know what you're looking for. So really figure out what that first employee is going to look like for you. Stick to a consistent interview process and go with that process. And then, after that, retain that person, onboarding that person. That's a lot of work too, but you already did the upfront work and all the grinding and the grit work to get that person. You got to do everything on the back end to retain that first employee, first hire, or even that 100th hire that you have down the road. So I would say do that. It's nerve wracking. Don't let your nerves rack up on you, and you can do it. It's possible. I did it,
Yeah.
and I'm in this business, but it was still a challenge for me to even recruit my first employee because I was so much harder on myself
Yeah.
than maybe if I was recruiting for a client or anything like that. You just want to make sure it's that right fit and you're doing it the right way all the way through the process to get the best odds possible.
Good. And I'm putting you on the spot with this last question too, but
Yeah.
can you work with individuals who are self-employed to help them to hire their first employee? Is that a service that you offer through your business?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
We wrote up, I would think, numerous job postings, job descriptions, and putting everything together for everyone. I would say cheat code might be ChatGPT to give you a rough outline.
Yeah.
It's not
There you go.
perfect, but try it out. But yeah, we definitely can, and I'm always happy to field those questions because I know how it's like, being in that person's shoes and just trying to get everything together to begin with. And if I can ease that nervous or pain or anything up front, I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. And guys, Adam's a great guy, isn't he? I mean, that's part of the reason we had this great conversation at the event. I'm like, I got to bring you on my show. We'll figure out something to talk about. And I thought this was a great topic. And I talk a lot about marketing and LinkedIn, but sometimes I like to bring other aspects of business and hiring your first employee. I'm thinking about helping my audience to grow their business. So, Adam, this was such a great conversation. I just want to say thank you again for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, cool. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for watching. And while we are wrapping up, I want to remind you that as soon as the video is done playing here on LinkedIn, you'll see a little share button at the bottom. If you have not yet posted on LinkedIn this week, this month, heck, maybe even this year, go ahead and click on share and share that along. And then tell people something that you learned by watching, or maybe tell them why they should watch this interview, this conversation today. If you tag us in the post, we will comment back. And remember to tag people, use that little at symbol, and then just start typing in our name, and there'll be a drop down. Click on that, then we'll get notified that you're talking about this inside the post. And I don't get performance reviews anymore. I don't know about you, Adam. Now that you're working with the team, do you get performance reviews now, or
Yeah, so we do 30, 60, 90 days
okay?
yearly reviews every
Yeah.
year. And then for our yearly review, we do first, it's all the employee giving their feedback and advice how the first
Okay.
year went. And then we come back to the table, writing up everything from a leadership perspective, how their first year went, and then we have that conversation together.
How about you
So,
though? Do you get a review? Do you have do
oh,
people
do I?
evaluate you? Yeah.
Yes, yes, I have a
Okay.
review too, by a couple of owners that own the business here, and so yes, I'm constantly I have a monthly meeting and always have a yearly review, which is coming up here next week. So
Good. Well,
hopefully,
who
all
goes?
good news.
Part of the reason I say that is I usually have people that are self-employed on, then I'll say we don't give reviews. So your reviews, like comments from the audience helps us to know how we're doing. But I'll say, even though Adam does has reviews in his organization, I'm sure he would love the feedback. So if you enjoyed the conversation, we
Yeah,
would love to hear that from you. All right, Adam, well,
exactly.
I'll get you back to your business day. Thank you again for joining, and thank you to our audience for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. And we will see all of you on LinkedIn, and take care and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Adam. Bye bye.
Yep.